Unit 3. Unit 3, the main subject is humanitarians. The reading selection that we will be covering from Unit 3 is reading selection number 1, John Buldau and the Lost Boys of Sudan. You can see that in the picture. I will be working with you the active reading process, pre-reading, during the reading, and after the reading. Today, we're mostly going to concentrate on the pre-reading stage or before the reading stage, getting ready, preparing for the reading selection. Today's assignment will be to read the selection. On our next meeting, we will be applying the concepts that we are practicing today in an exercise uh, related to reading selection number 1. Today's quotations, words of wisdom. Time slows when your life is in danger. Every second takes a minute to pass, and even the smallest event gets chiseled into memory. My first rule every day was to find enough food to make it to the next day. Then I could afford the luxury of worrying about the enemy. These two quotations are from Mr. John Buldau himself, the protagonist of our reading selection, which is entitled John Buldau and the Lost Boys of Sudan. So I brought a map of Africa so you can see the context where these lost boys of Sudan had to travel to, right? They were in Sudan, their home country. They were forced to move from Sudan to Ethiopia, where they were put into a refugee camp. In Ethiopia, things got bad. Again, same as in Sudan, so they had to go back. They were pushed back by soldiers into their home country once again. Now, in Sudan, nothing had changed. Everything was all basically the same. So Buldau and the other boys decided to go and move to a different country, to Kenya. Here, they found refuge in refugee camps, and they basically, according to the reading selection and the video that you will be watching next, one of the videos, they stayed there for 10 years. Some of them, like John Buldau, were able to move to the US and become US citizens. Now in the next 2 slides, I have 2 videos. One that talks about the Lost Boys of Sudan specifically, and the second video is like a short biography about Mr. John Buldau. Enjoy.
Sometimes there's a quiet grace and nobility that comes with enduring immeasurable suffering. Some people have the ability to maintain hope in the promise of tomorrow despite unyielding fear and death. Simon Dang and Peter Nook are 2 such men, and they're also 2 of the lost boys of the Sudan. Network coverage like this from NBC, ABC, and CBS dominated the news in the late 1980s and 90s and shortly before 9/11, as journalists attempted to shed light on the widening war in the southern Sudan. A byproduct of British colonialism, the Sudan is a country largely shackled together with Arab Muslims in the north and black Christians in the south. As seen in this ABC broadcast footage, in 1987, the Khartoum Arab government systematically began driving people from their villages in the south. What followed was a mass exodus of young boys who were forced to flee their homes or die. They were called the Lost Boys by the relief workers because of the Peter Pan story. The boys spent 3 months struggling to make their way to Ethiopia and the sanctuary of refugee camps. Simon Dang and Peter Nook were both just 7 years old when the Khartoum-based government began their war against their countrymen in the south.
Most majority of the village was burned down to the ground. Everything was destroyed. And there was no other, mean of support that they can get. If your shelter house had been destroyed, burned down, with all the food in there, everything is completely gone. So now you have to start from the crash. You start from from zero, and then you don't have any kind of stuff. And it was tough.
The young girls had value. They could be sold into slavery or marriage. The fate of the young boys, however, was even more perilous. The Khartoum government decided it was easier to kill children rather than to face them as young men with weapons. And so, the killing began. The village elders managed to save many of the boys and get them on the road. And it was a day that Peter Nook has seared into his memory.
We fear that day, we fear, because a lot of people lay down, they cannot walk. So the few older, they come and went out the portals and collect all the lost boys who are hiding. And they keep pushing us, work to collect them, where the people scatter.
With little or no food, water, or shelter, only those with the strongest will manage to survive. Numbers vary. However, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees believe that somewhere between 30,000 and 27,000 young boys began their journey to their first refugee camp.
It's hard to remember how many people lost on the way. We had a lot of people dying on the way with a lot of different difficulties, that they couldn't even make it, and there was no food, no water, and the other had homesick, which is emotionally hard for them to go because they're not with their mom and their dad.
Some lost the will to live, and they died along the way. Others were simply too young or too weak to keep up. Adding to the chaos and the misery, lions hunted and picked off those that were unable to keep moving.
According to Dinka people, they're saying, some older people, they told us that if you saw the lion and if you don't look at eye, so can you took your eye away and walk like you are playing a little bit, but if you look direct eye, they will jump you.
Many, like Simon Deng, had an unwavering faith, and even at 7, that fueled his endurance.
What actually kept me going is the faith that I have and a lot of advice from my parents that encouraged me to choose that path or to choose light in that particular time. Because what they tell you, if you give up, that's it, basically, that's it. But if you keep trying, you might have to make it, you're gonna make it. And at some point, you will.
For those that had survived the 3 months on the road and managed to make their way to Ethiopia, life in the refugee camp was extremely difficult. Despite help from the United Nations, the lost boys continued to struggle for survival.
It's very bad the time we went there, it's very bad because there is no much food and no shelter and no blanket and no support so that we can cook food. It's bad.
Life improved somewhat in the 3rd year of the camp, and the UNHCR built a hospital and the Red Cross helped with the food. However, after 3 years, the Ethiopian government fell, and the lost boys were forced to flee for a second time. The children spent more than a month crossing back through the Sudan and then into Kenya. Along the way, they were shelled by the Khartoum troops, and once again, they suffered a number of casualties.
You have to be off the road. They were shooting a bunch of the, I cannot, what is it called, artilleries, and they shoot it in the center in the road. If you got there, you got out of the way. So we have to be out off the road, in the main road, somewhere in the wood along. And but at that particular time when I was 11 or 12, it was a little bit better than the first one. 'Cause now I can run. I can walk faster enough.
As if their ordeal wasn't enough, the Lost Boys had to cross rivers to make it to the safety of Kenya. As depicted in these drawings by one of the youngsters that survived, they also had to face more troops, drowning, and also crocodiles.
Yeah, there is a crocodiles if the God help you. What can you do? So can you stay other side? And there is a local tribe called Anuak. They come and kill you, and they kill most of the lost boy, and throw them in the river. So you need to go. If you're lucky, you cross the river.
First of all, you have to swim under the water, which is crocodile. They will never attack you if you're under the water. If they see you coming, they will run away from you because they thought maybe you can attack them. But you are above the water, on top of the water, sure. They're the one, seeing you, but you cannot see them. And so I swim under the water, and then in the middle, so I pop up just to catch my breath. And then I only have one person, to the other side of the river. I can't help any other people, many.
Those that survived the second trek would go on to live at the refugee camp at Kakuma in Kenya. Life was still very difficult, but boys like Simon and Peter focused on their education and the hope of a better life. They would spend another 9 years at the Kakuma refugee camp.
It's very interesting that you write down with your finger on the dirt. You can write a whole paragraph on the sand. Teachers, they might just come and read it and correct it. You can do math down there on the dirt and follow all the steps that you need to take.
Estimates vary on the numbers, but it is believed that around 11,000 of the Lost Boys somehow survived. Starting in 2001, around 3,800 of the youngsters, who are now young men, resettled to the United States, where they're now living in 39 cities across the U.S. With the help of various religious organizations and groups, a number of the Lost Boys have made a remarkable transition to living in America. Both Simon and Peter ended up calling San Jose home, and they became United States citizens.
I was very excited, happy, to see a new place. And I never been to this country before, so I was hoping that basically when I go to the U.S. I have to continue with my education. Despite whatever the conditions are, I thought that's the best opportunity to take. Just take that chance, don't let it go. Because some of the windows, they might be open and sometimes they close. So when your windows are opportunity open, just take it. That's one more time. Water is a liquid.
The men work 2 jobs, 16 hours a day, and still find time to go to college. Simon works for the Santa Clara Water District, teaching water conservation, and he hopes someday to become a nurse and return home and to help his people. Peter's employed at a printing company, and he's been instrumental in helping Sudanese orphans, and he has personally returned to the Sudan 4 times to help 38 orphans relocate to a school in Kenya.
The time we came here, we are still behind, but the time we came here, American friends come and help us a lot. So it's kind of appreciation first to them. And then they gave it to us, and we want to give it to our people. And that is God brought us to this country. So we are not coming for ourselves. We are coming, God sent us so that we can come and help people there in back home.
It has been said that the greatest test of courage on earth is to bear defeat without losing heart. Simon Dang and Peter Nook remain warriors of the heart.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Bull Dow.
John Dow is one of the most extraordinary speakers I have ever heard because his life story is almost beyond comprehension.
When I was 12 years old, this is when my village was attacked. It was attacked in the middle of night while we were sleeping in our house. As I got out, I saw somebody whom I thought was my father in the middle of the night. So I was running after this man. Later, he dug a root of a plant called amoiro, dug it out. It's like my hand like this, and we ate it. That was our first food after 3 days. See, in America, you go for 1 day without food, you say, I'm going to die. You know? We didn't die, and so we kept going.
I was touched throughout John Dow's speech. It was entertaining, seeped with deep, important spiritual and emotional information.
And so we got to Ethiopia, we were put in a group of 50. As I said before, I was 12 years old, but then I was taller than the other boys. So I was put in charge of one group. We were acting like parents. But there was one thing. We didn't give up. Life was so bad, but then didn't give up.
John Dow's story is it's just so universal. There's such a universality to it. You know, everybody faces struggle. You know, everyone faces adversity, and he did that at such a young age, and you know, he overcame that. You know, he overcame that adversity, and that's, you know, in itself inspiring. It makes us think that we can do anything.
But in 1999, when I was in my 11th grade, there came Americans, and now it was real that some of us will come to America. And now everybody's talking about America. Some think they know America. For example, one of my friends said, well, he knows America. That he said, it's okay to be lazy in America. Because when you are lazy in America, Americans don't mind. And they say, what they do, they tie a green card in your neck. And you go to any restaurant and eat for free.
I really thought that he was a wonderful speaker and combined humor and also was very heartfelt.
There was a lot of wrong perception about the United States, and as one of my friends was telling us, giving us warning that American girls are crazy. And they said they all carry small bags. In those small bags, they have a gun in it. So you mess up with them, they will shoot you. You know?
John Dow was amazing. If there's anything that you come away with this, it's the quiet dignity, the quiet strength of humanity. It's a matter of we're all in this together. And that's what his story is about.
And I warn you tonight, whatever you're doing, being faced by any difficult situation, never give up. Thank you very much.
Now we're going to go into the pre-reading, preparing for the reading topic. Remember that we are working with the active reading process, pre-reading, before the reading, during the reading, which will be your homework, and after the reading, which is when we complete exercises and activities related to the reading selection. On our next class, we will have the after the reading. Today, again, as I already mentioned, you will have, after you watch this video of this PowerPoint, you will be reading the selection that has been uploaded on the Moodle page. Preparing for the reading usually requires to answer a certain amount of questions that, again, gets us ready for the reading selection. So we have these questions. I need you to answer these questions in your notebooks. What are some qualities of born leaders? Remember that the reading selection is about John Bull Dow, and he had to become a leader at a very early age. So what are some qualities of born leaders? Number 2, why does war create refugees? What are some of the places in the world that have refugee camps? We already mentioned that the Lost Boys of Sudan found refuge in Kenya, right? Other places in the world also have refugee camps. If you have no idea how to answer this question, don't worry. You can conduct some research after you finish watching the video, and maybe then you will be prepared for answering the question. And third, as refugees move from their homes to other places, what are some of the dangers they face along the way? You will see what dangers the Lost Boys of Sudan faced along the way in the reading selection. Key vocabulary. As always, we will be giving you some important vocabulary words that you should learn, know, practice before you start reading the selection. These words are deemed important for the reading selection. Some of them you may already know them, heard about them, know the meaning of. Others, those are the ones that you need to work harder with. Also, remember when you get the selection, there are footnotes that give you some explanations of words, maybe places that they mention that they want you to know what that place is, or any given definition. So let's get to these words. First, resilient. Now, in your homes, you should be repeating the word resilient. Persevering, persevering. Chaos, chaos. Survive, survive. Compassion, compassion. Challenges, challenges. Constantly, constantly. Adjusted, adjusted. Documentary, documentary. And finally, circumstances, circumstances. I will read them one more time. Resilient, persevering, chaos, survive, compassion, challenges, constantly, adjusted, documentary, circumstances. Now remember, you need to practice these 10 times each. That way you learn spelling and pronunciation. Homework. Read the selection entitled John Bulldao and the Lost Boys of Sudan, pages 71-74. I have included a copy of the reading selection within this task. Remember that you had a previous homework to write the key vocabulary words 10 times so you learn spelling and pronunciation. You read the selection. This is the during the reading part of the active reading process. On our next class, we will have the after the reading stage or step of the active reading process. Be prepared on our next class to have a discussion on the reading selection. Here are the references. The book, of course, Weaving It Together, Connecting Reading and Writing, and the 2 videos from YouTube. One last thought. Always remember that learning is fun and it is a lifelong journey, especially learning English. I will see you next time. Have a good one.